Every decision, every choice, whether by an individual or by a nation, carries weight. We often underestimate the ripple effect of our actions, believing that our decisions are private and inconsequential. But history, scripture, and experience tell us otherwise. Choices shape destinies, determine the course of nations, and invite blessings or bring judgment. Today, it is time to awaken to the reality that our collective choices have consequences. Some immediate, some far-reaching, and some we may never fully comprehend until it is too late. The first truth to understand is that every choice reflects what we truly value. A nation's laws, priorities, and policies mirror the moral compass of its leaders and citizens. When integrity is compromised, greed becomes rewarded, and justice is sidelined, the nation drifts from the principles that sustain life and liberty. Choices are never neutral, they reveal character. A nation that chooses expedience over righteousness, comfort over courage, or self-interest over justice will eventually face the consequences of those decisions. It is not simply a matter of politics. It is a reflection of the collective moral and spiritual fiber of the society. Every choice carries a consequence, and often the immediate consequences serve as warning signs. A policy that undermines family structure, an economy that encourages debt over diligence, or a society that tolerates dishonesty sends a message. The choices we make are not without cost. These warning signs are meant to redirect the nation toward wisdom and correction. Ignoring them leads to escalation. The patterns of consequence begin small but grow until they can no longer be ignored. A nation that repeatedly makes unwise choices will find that what once seemed minor becomes catastrophic, shaking the foundations of society. Beyond immediate outcomes, the choices of today determine the long-term trajectory of a nation. Decisions about education, justice, morality, and leadership echo across generations. What is sown now, values, policies, and cultural norms, becomes the inheritance of future citizens. Nations that compromise justice, ignore truth, and embrace selfishness may prosper temporarily, but the long-term effects are devastating. Conversely, nations that uphold integrity, prioritize righteousness, and nurture character leave a legacy of strength, resilience, and blessing for generations to come. No nation operates outside of accountability, whether measured by natural consequences, societal collapse, or the judgment of a higher moral authority. Every decision carries accountability. Leaders and citizens alike must recognize that choices are not isolated. They ripple outward, affecting millions. Ignoring the moral and ethical dimensions of decisions invites consequences, sometimes in unexpected ways. History is filled with nations that thought themselves untouchable, only to be humbled by the outcomes of collective choices. Accountability is not punishment. It is the natural law of cause and effect, reminding a nation to return to wisdom. While consequences are real, there is hope. A nation can turn from poor choices to embrace wisdom, justice, and righteousness. Redemption begins when individuals and leaders make conscious, deliberate decisions aligned with truth and moral clarity. The path to national restoration is paved with humility, accountability, and the courage to choose what is right even when it is difficult. Choices can heal divisions, restore values, and redirect the course of history. A nation awakened to its choices can experience renewal, prosperity, and lasting stability. The wake-up call is clear. Choices matter. They reflect values, bring consequences, shape legacies, demand accountability, and hold the power to redeem. Every citizen, every leader has a role in shaping the future. The question is not whether choices have consequences. They always do. The question is whether we will respond wisely and courageously before it is too late. Every choice a nation makes, every law it passes, every policy it enacts is a reflection of its core values. Values are not just abstract ideas or words printed in documents. They are the underlying currents that guide decisions and shape behavior. A society that claims to value justice but tolerates corruption in its leadership is revealing the truth about what it truly honors. Similarly, when a nation praises freedom but allows oppression or exploitation to flourish, the contradiction is exposed in its actions. Choices are never isolated. They are the outward expressions of internal priorities. They show what a nation truly respects, cherishes, and believes in. Even when citizens or leaders claim good intentions, the choices they make demonstrate the authentic moral compass of the country. The way resources are allocated, the policies that are enforced, and the cultural norms that are celebrated all speak louder than any speech or declaration. When a nation chooses short-term gain over long-term stability, it demonstrates a value system rooted in convenience rather than principle. When policies favor self-interest and neglect the vulnerable, the moral priority is clear. Survival and comfort are placed above justice and compassion. Decisions about education, healthcare, criminal justice, and economic opportunity reveal the priorities of the society. A nation that invests heavily in wealth accumulation while ignoring the needs of the poor is sending a message about what it values. Every choice, whether intentional or unconscious, communicates what is most important to the collective conscience of the people. Choices also reveal courage or cowardice. A nation may claim to value truth and righteousness, but when faced with difficult decisions, it often chooses compromise over conviction. Choosing convenience over integrity may appear harmless at first, but over time, it erodes the character of a society. When leaders make decisions that protect their popularity or political position, rather than uphold moral and ethical standards, they are reflecting a value system that prioritizes self-preservation above principle. Similarly, when citizens condone injustice or remain silent in the face of wrongdoing, they participate in the erosion of societal values. Silence in the context of choice is itself a reflection of what is tolerated and, by extension, what is valued. Every action, no matter how small, communicates priorities. A nation that legalizes behaviors contrary to its foundational principles is making a choice that reflects what it now values. Conversely, a nation that enforces laws and cultivates policies consistent with truth and justice demonstrates alignment between its declared values and its actions. This alignment, or lack thereof, has profound implications. Nations that act consistently with their principles are strong and resilient. Those that allow dissonance between what they say and what they do invite instability and decline. History provides countless examples of societies whose decline began when choices no longer reflected the moral and ethical standards that once guided them. The choices a nation makes are also a mirror for future generations. Children growing up in a society where ethical compromises are normalized internalize the values reflected in those decisions. Choices are not only a reflection of the present, they shape the character, expectations, and moral foundation of tomorrow. The laws passed, the societal norms enforced, and the examples set by leaders all teach the next generation what is truly honored. A society that makes choices rooted in integrity, justice, and righteousness is investing in a legacy of strength. A society that tolerates expedience, deception, and selfishness risks passing on a legacy of moral and cultural decay. Ultimately, a nation cannot hide behind rhetoric or tradition. The choices it makes are an unmistakable testimony of its values. They reveal what is revered, what is ignored, and what is compromised. Choices expose the moral and ethical priorities of a people, whether consciously acknowledged or not. Every law enacted, every policy approved, every collective decision made is a reflection of the heart of the nation. To understand the state of a country, one need not only examine its proclamations, but look carefully at the decisions it makes consistently. A nation's choices are the mirror of its soul, and in that mirror, the truth about its values is unmistakably revealed. Every choice carries a consequence, and often the first consequences arrive sooner than expected, serving as unmistakable warning signs. These immediate repercussions are like flashes of red on a dashboard, signaling that something in the direction we have taken is unsustainable or dangerous. They are not random or meaningless. They are nature's and society's way of alerting us that we must pay attention and make adjustments before the situation escalates. Ignoring these early warnings is a perilous path because consequences have a cumulative effect. What may seem like a minor ripple today can grow into a wave that overwhelms a nation tomorrow. When a nation makes choices that compromise integrity, honesty, or justice, the first consequences often manifest quickly in the form of social unrest, economic strain, or moral confusion. Policies that appear convenient or profitable in the short term can lead to widespread dissatisfaction when they produce unintended harm. When laws favor the privileged while ignoring the needs of the marginalized will inevitably voice their dissatisfaction through protests, civil disobedience, or decline in public trust. These responses are not mere inconveniences. They are indicators that the nation is straying from the path of righteousness and justice. Immediate consequences, therefore, serve as wake-up calls, demanding awareness and corrective action before they become irreversible. Even in smaller, seemingly personal matters, the principle remains the same. If leaders, businesses, or citizens repeatedly make choices that prioritize selfishness over responsibility, the first signs of consequence are tangible and instructive. Rising crime rates, educational decline, health crises, and erosion of public trust are signals that cannot be ignored. These warning signs provide an opportunity to evaluate choices, to recognize patterns of behavior, and to make necessary corrections. The danger lies in dismissing these early indicators as coincidences, accidents, or temporary setbacks. Consequences, especially immediate ones, are rarely arbitrary. They are the natural outcomes of decisions made, serving as both instruction and admonition. Immediate consequences also test the resilience and character of a nation. When problems arise as a result of poor choices, the response determines whether a nation will endure, correct course, and grow stronger, or whether it will double down on error, increasing vulnerability to greater crises. A society that acknowledges warning signs, listens to the lessons embedded in immediate consequences, and takes corrective measures demonstrates wisdom and foresight. A society that ignores them is setting itself on a trajectory toward more severe consequences that can disrupt the very foundations of its stability. The pattern of warning signs is consistent throughout history. Nations that tolerated corruption in leadership often experience sudden economic crises or social upheaval as a direct result. Nations that disregarded moral and ethical standards face early indicators of decline in public trust, lawlessness, or cultural decay. These are not abstract lessons, they are observable realities. The immediate consequences are signals from reality itself, guiding a nation toward reflection, repentance, and correction. Recognizing these signs is a moral imperative as much as a practical necessity. Furthermore, immediate consequences highlight the interconnectedness of choices. A single decision may affect multiple areas of society, producing outcomes that ripple across generations, communities, and institutions. For example, a policy that undermines education may quickly result in declining literacy rates, higher unemployment, and increased crime. A law that disregards environmental stewardship may result in sudden natural disasters, scarcity of resources, and public health crises. These are not coincidences. They are direct, immediate outcomes of collective choices. Paying attention to these consequences allows leaders and citizens alike to adjust strategies, amend decisions, and prevent further harm. Immediate consequences are the first opportunity for a nation to correct its course. They are warnings, signals, and lessons all at once. Ignoring them is a choice in itself, a choice to gamble with the future. The nation that heeds these signals can prevent minor issues from becoming catastrophic, maintaining stability and moral integrity. Those that dismiss them invite escalation, compounding errors, and eventual calamity. Every warning sign is a message, every consequence a lesson, and every choice a reflection of whether the nation is awake to the reality of cause and effect. While immediate consequences serve as warning signs, the long-term consequences of choices are what truly define the character and legacy of a nation. These are not fleeting effects that disappear with time. They are the lasting imprints of decisions made today, echoing across generations and shaping the very identity of a society. Every policy enacted, every cultural trend tolerated, every compromise in morality leaves a mark. These long-term consequences are cumulative, building layer upon layer until they become the story of a nation, its triumphs, its failures, and its moral and ethical footprint in history. A nation's legacy is not determined by what it says it values, but by the enduring outcomes of its collective choices. The choices made in governance, education, justice, and social norms carry weight far beyond the present moment. When a nation prioritizes immediate gratification over long-term stability, it risks creating generational problems that may be impossible to fully correct. Economic policies that favor debt over sustainability, for example, may provide temporary prosperity but leave future generations burdened by financial instability. Decisions that neglect education or moral guidance may yield short-term convenience but result in a citizenry ill-prepared to uphold the principles and responsibilities necessary for a thriving society. Each decision made today, seemingly isolated, becomes a building block in the legacy left for tomorrow. The long-term consequences of choices also reveal themselves in the culture and character of a nation. A society that compromises justice, tolerance, and truth in pursuit of expediency may experience erosion of trust, moral ambiguity, and the gradual decay of institutions. The norms, values, and principles that once guided the nation may be weakened or even abandoned entirely, creating a cultural environment in which cynicism and self-interest dominate. Conversely, nations that consistently make decisions rooted in integrity, compassion, and wisdom cultivate a culture of accountability, resilience, and moral clarity. These long-term outcomes demonstrate that choices are not only about the present moment. They are investments in the future character of a society. Leadership decisions play a particularly significant role in shaping long-term consequences. Leaders set the tone and direction of a nation through the policies they enforce and the values they prioritize. When leaders make choices aligned with justice, truth, and collective well-being, they leave a legacy of stability and strength. When leaders prioritize personal gain or expedience over principle, the consequences ripple through every level of society, creating systemic problems that may take decades to reverse. Leadership decisions act as catalysts, amplifying the long-term impact of every choice made by citizens and institutions alike. The long-term consequences of choices are not only material, but also moral and spiritual. A nation that tolerates injustice, neglects compassion, or abandons ethical principles in pursuit of convenience will experience a slow but inevitable decay of character. The moral fabric of the society weakens, and the guiding principles that once provided stability and coherence become blurred or lost entirely. Future generations inherit these consequences, carrying the burden of decisions made long before they were born. This demonstrates that choices are not merely immediate actions. They are seeds planted for the future, each with the potential to bear fruit or poison the soil for generations to come. Yet, long-term consequences also carry a lesson of responsibility and foresight. Recognizing that today's decisions will shape the destiny of tomorrow provides a moral imperative to act wisely. Each choice is an opportunity to build a legacy of righteousness, justice, and wisdom rather than short-term gain or personal comfort. Nations that intentionally prioritize long-term impact over immediate convenience cultivate a foundation of strength and resilience. They create a society where integrity, accountability, and foresight are woven into the culture, leaving an inheritance of stability and blessing for generations, yet unborn. Ultimately, the long-term consequences of choices are a call to vision and responsibility. Every action taken today contributes to the story that future generations will inherit. A nation that makes decisions aligned with wisdom, truth, and justice plants seeds of prosperity, moral clarity, and strength. A nation that disregards these principles plants seeds of instability, moral decay, and conflict. The legacy of a nation is shaped not by chance, but by deliberate, consistent choices that honor truth and uphold the values that sustain life, justice, and society. No nation can escape accountability. Choices, whether made by leaders, institutions, or citizens, carry weight and inevitably invite consequences. Accountability is not optional. It is the natural law of cause and effect. Every decision, every policy, every cultural trend established by a society contributes to the moral and social framework that governs it. When a nation ignores accountability, it is not avoiding consequences. It is merely delaying the inevitable. The principle is clear. Actions have repercussions, and nations, like individuals, must face the results of their choices. Pretending otherwise only compounds the problem. Accountability is not punishment, it is reality manifesting itself. A nation that refuses to acknowledge responsibility for its decisions walks a perilous path toward instability and decline. Leaders bear a particularly heavy responsibility. Decisions made at the highest levels ripple outward, affecting millions of lives. When leaders act with integrity, wisdom, and justice, they establish systems that promote fairness, opportunity, and moral clarity. Conversely, when leaders act selfishly, dishonestly, or with disregard for the welfare of the people, they set in motion a chain of consequences that can destabilize entire societies. Corruption, nepotism, and the pursuit of personal gain over public good erode trust in institutions, weaken governance, and create fertile ground for chaos. Accountability ensures that leaders cannot act with impunity. Their choices are inseparable from the results that follow, and history consistently demonstrates that nations pay the price when leaders evade responsibility. Accountability extends beyond leadership to the citizens themselves. A nation is a reflection of its people. When citizens condone wrongdoing, tolerate injustice, or prioritize self-interest over collective well-being, they share responsibility for the consequences. Silence in the face of immorality or corruption is a choice that carries weight. Turning a blind eye to unethical behavior allows it to proliferate, ultimately undermining the stability, security, and integrity of society. Citizens cannot absolve themselves of responsibility simply because they are not the ones making laws or policies. Accountability is shared, woven into the fabric of national life. Every action or inaction contributes to the moral trajectory of the nation. History offers countless examples of nations that ignored accountability only to face profound consequences. Civilizations that allowed injustice to flourish, corruption to become normalized, and moral decay to advance eventually experience collapse, invasion, or societal upheaval. These outcomes are not coincidences, they are the inevitable results of collective choices left unchecked. The principle is clear. Accountability cannot be escaped, and nations that fail to acknowledge it set themselves on a path toward calamity. Lessons of history are warnings, not suggestions. Ignoring accountability does not prevent consequences, it guarantees them. Accountability also operates on a moral and spiritual level. Choices that undermine justice, truth, or righteousness carry consequences that extend beyond politics, economics, or culture. A nation that turns away from ethical principles cannot avoid the effects of its moral failings. Social unrest, loss of cohesion, erosion of trust, and systemic inequities are all reflections of unacknowledged accountability. Every choice, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, contributes to the moral ledger of the nation. Ignoring the balance of justice, fairness, and truth does not erase it. It accumulates, demanding recognition and rectification. Yet, accountability is not merely punitive, it is instructive. It provides a nation with the opportunity to reflect, correct course, and align choices with principles of justice, wisdom, and integrity. Acknowledging accountability fosters resilience, strengthens institutions, and cultivates a culture of responsibility. Nations that embrace accountability understand that consequences are a natural response to action and that proactive correction is the pathway to stability and lasting prosperity. Accountability is both a warning and an opportunity, a warning of potential collapse and an opportunity for restoration and renewal. Ultimately, accountability is unavoidable. Every choice carries weight, and every action has a response. Leaders and citizens alike must recognize that no decision exists in isolation, and no society can separate itself from the results of its collective choices. Evading responsibility is an illusion, but embracing accountability is a pathway to strength, stability, and lasting moral and social order. Nations that fail to recognize this principle invite chaos. Nations that acknowledge it chart a course for restoration, justice, and enduring legacy. Even when a nation has made poor choices, even when immediate consequences have manifested and long-term effects threaten stability, redemption is possible. Redemption begins the moment a nation chooses to acknowledge its errors and commit to a path of wisdom, justice, and moral clarity. No society is beyond repair. No collective decision is so permanent that it cannot be redirected toward righteousness. History is filled with examples of nations that rose from chaos, corruption, and moral decline to experience renewal and restoration. These examples demonstrate a timeless truth. While consequences are real and accountability unavoidable, the power of wise, deliberate choice can change the course of a nation and restore hope. Redemption is first and foremost a matter of recognition. A nation must confront the reality of its choices, refusing to ignore, justify, or rationalize actions that have caused harm. This requires courage and humility. Leaders and citizens alike must be willing to see the truth, admit mistakes, and accept responsibility. Denial only deepens the wounds. Acknowledgement opens the door for transformation. Recognizing the consequences of past choices is not a sign of weakness, it is the first step towards strength. By facing the truth, a nation gains clarity about where correction is needed and how to pursue a course that aligns with justice, integrity, and the common good. The process of redemption also requires deliberate action. It is not enough to express regret or hope for improvement. A nation must make choices that actively reverse the negative consequences of past decisions. Policies, laws, and cultural priorities must be reassessed and restructured. Leadership must be willing to set new standards, modeling accountability, integrity, and ethical decision-making. Citizens must engage actively in shaping the moral, social, and economic direction of the nation. Each choice becomes an opportunity to rebuild trust, restore justice, and strengthen institutions. Wise action today can repair the damage of yesterday and lay a foundation for a brighter, more sustainable future. Redemption is amplified through collective commitment. A nation cannot change through isolated acts. Transformation requires unity of purpose and shared dedication to principles that elevate society rather than diminish it. Communities that embrace collective responsibility, mutual accountability, and ethical standards create momentum for national restoration. The shared effort to pursue justice, fairness, and truth reinforces the moral fiber of society. Collective choices, when aligned with integrity and wisdom, generate a culture of renewal. signaling to future generations that mistakes can be corrected and the course of history redirected. The spiritual dimension of redemption is also crucial. Nations that ground their choices in truth, righteousness, and ethical principles draw strength beyond mere human wisdom. Moral and spiritual clarity provides guidance, resilience, and discernment, enabling a society to navigate complex challenges without repeating past mistakes. Redemption, in this sense, is not merely about avoiding collapse. It is about cultivating a lasting foundation for prosperity, peace, and justice. The choices that align with these higher principles have the power to transform society, heal divisions, and restore hope to those who have been affected by previous poor decisions. Ultimately, redemption is a call to courage. It demands that a nation confront its past, act decisively in the present, and make choices that shape a future defined by integrity and righteousness. Every decision becomes an opportunity to reverse harm, restore moral order, and leave a legacy of strength for generations to come. The nation that seizes this opportunity demonstrates that while consequences are real and accountability cannot be avoided, wise choices have the power to restore, redeem, and transform the course of history. No society is beyond redemption when its people choose courage over convenience, principle over expedience, and truth over deception. Redemption is always possible, but it begins with the unwavering decision to choose wisely today for the benefit of tomorrow.